on this computer. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and go to the presentation. Okay, do you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. Excellent. Okay. So we have called this the viewpoint stories, a viewpoint for lived experience. And this first slide just is introduction. You can read this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so the first slide is really to explain NAMI Washtenaw County. I'll go through it, but I know you're familiar well with it. The mission is to improve mental health through education, support, and advocacy. That's our mission. NAMI Washtenaw is a nonprofit, volunteer-based organization. And we began in 1984 during the time when CMH was growing in Washtenaw County. And we are an affiliate of NAMI Michigan and the NAMI National Organization. These two little faces represent two groups that are our primary constituents, people with a mental health condition and their supporters, friends, and family. And they intentionally overlap there to give you a sense that you can actually belong to both groups at once. People with mental health conditions can also be supporting other people with mental health conditions. NAMI Washtenaw is a community with lived experience, not merely professional degrees. Some of us have professional degrees of one form or another, but we are primarily focusing on our lived experiences. We're peer run by a board, staff, and volunteers, and we have three forms of programs, 6-week education sessions separately for each group, mental health conditions and supporters. We have support groups, which are ongoing. They're separate for each group. And then we have advocacy, which we define as outreach, community education, community action for the whole community. This is about Garrett Space, which is the focus of our current training. Garrett Space was founded in 2019 by Julie and Scott Halpert after their son Garrett's suicide in 2017. The mission of Garrett Space is to reduce suicides and fill gaps in supportive care for young adults, 18 to 28. Those young adults have anxiety, depression, and other life challenges. They are not actively suicidal, not dangerous, do not necessarily have psychosis or other forms of mania. This is according to their materials. Their mission is to strengthen peer connections and improve self-worth and resilience. Their program activities include weekly wellness groups. They use professional facilitators to support individual therapy. They also provide non-medical residential space for 3 to 4 weeks for comprehensive support. And they focuses on a tranquil, natural environment, walking paths, gardens, a warm, welcoming space featuring holistic healing activities such as yoga, meditation, art, music, and nutritional cooking. They are organized as a 501c3, which is a nonprofit designation of the IRS, as NAMI Washtenaw is. They have a community board. They're professionally staffed and dedicated to following national best practices. So they're slightly different than NAMI because they're a professional organization. But so that's fine. One of the things that we're addressing in Superior Township with their proposal to have a residential program there is NIMBY, the Not in My Backyard. NIMBY reflects the stigma and the prejudice about people, essentially who are just different. Garrett Space is planning a short-term residential space, a support facility for people with anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. it's often couched, NIMBY is often couched as support for mental health services. They just don't want those services here. So it's a very difficult argument to address because they often do not appear, they try to appear as if they're not stigmatizing. But if you listen closely, many of the arguments have to do with worries about safety. You know, it's going to be near children, um, vulnerable people. So there is behind it some sense of worry and concern that people with these conditions might be dangerous. Research has shown that the most effective responses to NIMBY are combinations of contact and education. The other approach is confrontation, and that's not as effective. I think we saw that in the township meeting last night, where primarily it was confrontive rather than educational. It provided some contact with people who had mental health conditions, but wasn't really. Oops. So stories, in fact, do this kind of education and contact uh, without essentially, hopefully, without confrontation or shaming, because that's inhibiting people change. And really, what the idea is that stories are to persuade people to think differently and not to shame them into acting differently. So viewpoint, what we call them viewpoint stories. Here's some aspects of what makes them good. Um, they represent lived experiences. They should be short. Uh, Typically, like last night's session with the township Superior Township Board, they allowed 2 minutes. So if you could express what you wanted to do in 2 minutes, then that's what was allowed. So essentially, they're designed to be short to fit that kind of format. They're described. They should describe real and important events, be coherent and believable. They should be. These stories should be personally and emotionally effective. Sometimes we talk about having emotion, but not too much emotion. So if the story overwhelms the storyteller, then the audience's response may be more like sympathy for the person, but not really listening to the story. So personal and emotional effectiveness is important. One thing that's a little difficult to describe is that stories should create tension and should challenge the listener. For example, to say something like, "Am I like this? Could this happen to me?" Or if it happened to me, how would I handle it? Uh, or my experience is different and I don't understand it and I want to know more. I think that was the effect when the primary care physician last night talked about her own suicide attempts and President Ono's suicide attempts, is that it creates a tension. Here's somebody who's very successful, but at the same time has had difficult times and emerged from them. Stories should show change and transition over time, showing that people can change. There's redemption that is good result from hard times. That there's improvement, that improvement can be planned and replicated with others. And I think that's the sign of showing people with experience or showing us having a story of experiences that you show that you can in fact improve, it can be planned and it can be replicated. So those are what do you think about these points? What's your reaction? I saw you nodding, Jaden. Any reaction to these?
Yeah, I think they're all really good points. I think when I was looking at the example story, I think it can be like, do you want people to put like what kind of like mental health condition they're living with, or is that something that's not really important? Just because I know a lot of people have a lot of comorbidities, or like some people aren't exactly sure even like what
Yeah,
they have specifically.
that's a great point. In some respects, getting too complicated obscures the story of recovery. Um, but it also however, provides the ability for people to understand it because they may have had similar symptoms. And so it's a tough line to draw. That's a great point. I think the idea of keeping the simple story is that if you have a situation where people want to know more, that's good. And in that respect, they can explore it with you. And that's why stories in the context of having a dialogue is much more useful than just having it as a presentation. What do you think, Barb? You're an old hand at this.
Right. I would agree that a dialogue is where we want to go. But yeah, I think short and real
Yeah,
are important.
yeah,
And yeah. So how do you connect with somebody who thinks differently from you?
exactly.
It,
Yeah, that is, I think you have to be open to them asking questions. And in a sense, you have to allow them to reveal something of themselves.
mhm.
Um, and that's that dealing with that is a very, very important skill that we don't really talk about here. About how do you deal with someone who reveals something about themselves that's not on point, but is really important and relatable. And so, in some respects, what you want them to do is talk about themselves rather than uh, and sort of feel comfortable in revealing something. So it's a good question, and I don't, we don't really go into that into how the storyteller can really uh,
No.
allow other people.
Well, to evoke some kind of response that makes
Yes,
them feel like they're being heard or
yes, that's a great point, Barb. Uh, that's a really good point. And I don't know. I don't think we have. I think we're focusing right now on just getting the story told, and but the conditions under which you tell the story are really important. And how do you deal with someone who really does want to know something about themselves or their loved ones? And so that's a skill that we can delve into later. Great
mm,
point. Okay, so let's read the sample story. Uh, with any luck, we'll be able to dredge it up here. I'll start out with the introduction, but let's each of us read a section and then at the end, think about what really makes the story work and how it could be actually also how it could be improved. So I'll start. It says the introduction. Hello, I'm Shannon from Ann Arbor. I'm a member of NAMI Washtenaw, the largest peer-run organization supporting people with mental health conditions. I'm a person who lives with anxiety and depression. I'd like to share my story with you and ask for your help to build support and mental health services for people like me, our families, among our friends, and in our communities. Barb, you want to do the next one?
okay. In my late teens, I was a successful student. I
I'll make it
graduated.
a little bit bigger. How's that?
Oh, that's great. And then I gotta move your faces out of the. Okay. In my late teens, I was a successful student. I graduated from high school and was admitted to college. I had a close group of friends, worked hard, and never imagined I would experience anxiety and depression. But I did, and I found that I was becoming more and more alone and isolated. I started seeing a therapist after experiencing nightmares, nervousness, and problems at school and work. I thought that with some therapy, these problems would stop, but my symptoms got worse. Eventually, I dropped out of school, returned home, and thought a lot about suicide. I have never been lower.
Okay, Jaden, do you want to?
Yeah, I found my way back again with the help of a psychiatrist, a diagnosis of depression, some medication, and group meetings with peers, people like me. We shared our struggles and solutions. I learned how to manage my depression. I continued to grow, learn, live, and love. My team of professionals and peers gave me hope and gave me the encouragement I needed. I attended several groups, I returned to school and found my own housing. Now I live close to friends and my family who support me when I get sick.
Okay. How I'm different today. Today, I'm proud to be living on my own, decorating my apartment, working, doing well in school again, and volunteering to help others. I have spells of sickness, but I am confident of my continued recovery. Okay, Barb.
My action steps. What is the need or problem? Many people struggle with mental health conditions like mine, which are life-threatening. If I had gotten help sooner, I might not have lost the support of my friends, family, school, and job. Now we all understand better, but it took a long time for us to learn. Sometimes my professional helpers changed, and sometimes my family had its own problems. The support from my peers and my peer groups have always been there for me.
Okay, Jaden.
What will help others? Good mental health needs a team of people who get it at work, school, and home. I have my family and many new friends. We have all learned how to help each other.
Okay. Then the last is my ask. Thank you for meeting with me and listening to my story. Can I count on you to help us build a network of professionals and peers in our community? Okay, so let's talk about what makes this an effective story. What about the introduction? Any thoughts? Or maybe ways we could make it stronger?
I think it's good that it's very like concise and kind of a nice overview to the rest of the story.
Hmm. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think it helps to have an organizational hook, you know, uh, and it could be Garrett's space, it could be a church, it could be a synagogue or a place of worship, a community center, it could be anything. The idea is that it's not just me, it's I'm here with other people, you know.
Right.
Um, what about what happened? What about the tension and the dynamics of the story in that section?
Well, I think it's presents someone who's functioning, doing well, and then goes through the experiences that many people have, and then it sort of draws you into listening to
Mhm.
what the person has actually experienced, and possibly gaining some support from people who would otherwise not be supportive.
Yeah. I tried to put a little tension in the story by, and I used other stories as a model for this one too, so it's not just me. Um, the notion that, it goes back and forth. You go through cycles
Mm.
of difficulty, and so, okay, what about what helped? What do you like there? What could be better? I'll just throw in that both of these sections, what happened and what helped, really give a sense of time, change over time. Um, there was the kind of despair in what happened, but also then the kind of hopefulness of what helped. So
Yeah, I think what I remember, it says, I live close to friends and family. Later on in the story, you talk about losing that connection, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember where it is actually,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the thing is you,
Yes. Uh-huh.
uh,
Yeah. About what the need of the problem.
yeah, you said if I had not gotten help sooner, if I had gotten help
Yeah.
sooner, I might not have lost the support of my friends.
Yeah.
So it's a little unclear.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I agree that it's unclear. I also think it could be like something like it made things with like my family and friends more difficult because I think maybe the way it's worded gives like individuals who have like less of a positive view
Mm-hmm.
of like mental illness be more susceptible to be like, yeah, it's okay to like leave people like that.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I think the idea is you're getting people to listen and then to hope that you get better.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Now the action steps are really, in some respects, I think we want to say create the viewpoint and then let's talk about what the action steps might emerge. And so in some respects, I think we want to leave open, but I just filled in some of the action steps. They're pretty vague in general. I think, one could think of more specific ones, probably. Okay, let's just use that as a kind of springboard. One of the things that I want to talk about is, and I think we have to address, is the issue of risk and safety. Um, Advocacy stories identify weakness and seek change. So, and many people fear change. So I think we've really worked hard to try to develop a way to talk about this without a lot of risk involved. Advocacy stories also, these stories reward people too. It's really a mix of, in kind of vulnerability, expressing your vulnerability and emerging from that. And it's very rewarding to actually do that. So, I mean, I think when this training, we want to discuss a little bit about anyone's reluctance and your experience with speaking out, talking out, being self-revealing. I know, Barb, you've had a lot of experience with that.
Yeah. Um, I think for me, it's always been, I hope other people understand, but if they don't get it, that's their problem. Um, um, yeah, I think y- I mean, I have a lot of people that I know who are very reluctant to disclose any thing about having a mental health condition. And I think at some point I reached a decision that um, I'm going to come out of the closet and talk about it, because that's the only way things will change, is if people can talk about
Mhm.
what they experience. And it's really great to have NAMI because people do support and understand. Um, but I think one of the things that I would say, should I write a story, would be, it's just important to be able to talk about what's happening with each and every one of us. And I know when I'm talking to people on the phone who are going through things, it just, help others understand that this is a process that you can go through to achieve some sense of belonging to the community.
Mm. Yeah. It's always amazing to me that when you talk about your experience or people that you had experience with, other people then express their own experience and either their family members or them with themselves. So I think a lot of it is, and you wonder, in some cases, you get the feeling they don't really talk about it and they're glad to do it. And that gives them the capacity to do it.
Mhm.
What do you think, Jaden?
Yeah, I think definitely when like presenting to larger audiences, it can be very intimidating. I think it definitely is easier one-on-one because I think people are more likely to be like personable with you like after sharing that experience as opposed to like in a large group such as like the meeting yesterday. I think it would be difficult with like just people having such like opposing
Mm-hmm.
opinions. But I mean, yeah, I guess if somebody's going to be like ignorant enough to not think that they've had a family member or a friend or someone they've worked with, like who has been living with a mental health condition, then that's kind of
Yeah.
on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we do is to really, through the consent form, we really try to lay out these 4 issues here. You compose it yourself. Your story is your own. We're not going to put words in your mouth or take you in another direction. Whatever you want to say is what is right for you. You can change it at any time. So there was when I was teaching at the university, I said, when one of your friends said, "What'd you do this weekend?" What you told your friends would be very different than what you told your parents or an adult. So, you can change it at any time. It doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it uh, um, what the essence of the story is. You can withdraw it at any time. You don't have to, if you want to stop engaging, that's fine. No questions asked. And anytime we want to use it, you have to give us the consent for each use. So I sent out the consent form. I think I'll show it to you. Just, oops, what happened? uh, oh, I guess my link doesn't work. But anyway, the consent form goes through, and in a way, we don't have to sign that today, but eventually, we'll want to make sure that the message got through about these 4 points, um, and you understand that every time we use it, we're going to ask for your consent. We've had a lot of experience with this, and so even your in participation now is up to you, and so so in addition, we have ways you can be anonymous. We have a book of printed stories. Some people used pseudonyms. That's fine. Uh, like Barb said, there's safety in numbers. Um, Certainly, it makes it easier if a number of people around you are supporting you in the story. And then essentially our methods have worked. So we've had a long experience with this. So what I'd like to do now in the training in the next few minutes, like the next 10 minutes, and we don't actually have to uh, do this writing. We could do it verbally. It depends on what you want to do. There's just a practice sheet with the elements that we had in the sample story. So what would you like to do? Would you like to take a moment and compose something, or would you like just to talk about the kind of story you might think of telling? And it really can be about anything. It's your viewpoint. We're focused. We're trying to get some what stories that we can use with the Garrett's space, but it certainly is not limited to that. What's your pleasure?
I'm okay either way. Jaden, do you have a preference?
We could just run through it verbally, I think, if that works.
What's that?
We could just run through it verbally if
Oh,
that.
okay. All right. So, Jaden, what would you do on your introduction?
I would say something like, my name is Jaden Birchmeyer. I'm a volunteer with NAMI, which is a peer-run organization to help individuals living with a mental health condition as well as those in support of individuals with a mental health condition. Now I get a little stuck. Like basically what I'm going to be doing today is like telling my story and helping to raise
Okay.
awareness for others' stories as well.
Okay. Barb, how would I think it's useful to think about the differences between you and Jaden. I think it might be interesting.
Yeah, so I've been around for a long time, not quite as long as Mark, but just about.
Oh, no.
And I've had, so I would just state my name is Barb. I've worked with NAMI Washtenaw County as its office manager for years. I've had the opportunity to talk to many people who live with or in support of someone who has a mental health condition. And I also live with one myself. And I'd just like to share a little bit of my story with you.
Great. So do you want to go ahead and say what happened and kind of put that, take a shot at that?
Yeah, I'm getting really tired, Mark.
Okay. You want to take a break and let Jaden do it?
That sounds good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I actually might pull up the example just is to look at side by side. Yeah, so my freshman year of college, I was dealing with a lot of issues related to complex trauma. I was finding that I was getting triggered by everyday things as well as unable to sleep at night due to nightmares. This really caused me a lot of trouble focusing in class, meeting friends, and just having my own sense of well-being as well as self-esteem. And as my symptoms got worse, I attempted suicide, and this caused me to go to therapy, which ended up helping a lot, as well as really changing the way that I perceived mental health as well as my life in general.
Wow. That's great. Thank you. Can I ask if that was was it extended over an extended period of time and what was your experience with that? Can you say a little bit more?
Which part over an
Of
extended
all
period?
the you mentioned nightmares and
Yeah, I think
struggles.
it's definitely an ongoing process. I don't think it's anything that's ever going to fully quote unquote go away, but I think it's something that I've learned to manage in my day-to-day life as well as understand
Mhm.
what resources
Mhm.
I have available in case things get worse.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and say, well, what helped? Because that's kind of leads into that.
I really think that the two biggest things that helped me were seeing a therapist, and being able to open up about like things that had happened to me in my past, as well as just understanding that it's okay to share these things with your peers. And some people will end up not being so receptive to those things, but other people are incredibly supportive. So I think just understanding that like other people are there for you, and like being able to talk to others as well as understand in your own mind like what's happening has really like brought a sense of relief into my life, because I think that's when things got scary, is thinking I couldn't open up to anyone, and I also didn't know what was going on with myself. So I think
Mhm.
now, with knowing what resources I have as well as knowing that I do have a good support system around me, I'm able to
Mm.
like I was able to graduate college. Now I have a job working in neuroscience research, and I never would have been able to do those things if I hadn't had more trust in myself
Hmm.
as well as my support system.
Hmm. Yeah, what I hear you saying is that opening up really helps you develop that support system. Um, if I got it right. So, yeah. Okay. Barb, do you want to take a shot
Say
at?
it, yeah, it's like there's so many things that I don't know which to pick.
Sure.
But basically, I think I lived in one of the I think the first group home for people living with mental health conditions in Washtenaw County,
Hmm.
and I don't know how to kind of weave that into saying that there was a lot of opposition to the house.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't really remember much about it. But I think that I would say that uh, um, you know what really um, happened was that I didn't realize, I didn't know when I was younger that what I was experiencing was a mental health condition.
Hmm.
And it was also during a time when people really didn't speak about it. Um, and I, I don't know if, yeah, I'm just going to go here. I don't know that I would include this, but when I was talking to a friend of mine that I met again at a high school reunion,
Hmm.
we were just talking, and she told me that her brother had had schizophrenia and died by suicide.
Mm.
And I thought, I remember when I was really young, I was probably in third grade, that something horrible had happened, but nobody ever told me what it was.
Hmm.
And I found out many years later what had happened. And I think not being able to talk about things like that
Hmm.
is is really hard on everyone.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, and I didn't realize that I would grow up to have suicidal ideation.
Hmm.
But I think what's also important is that you find safe people, people that you can talk to.
Hmm. Yeah, and you hope that everyone has that kind of access to
Yeah,
safe talking. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's really great. Thank you.
Mhm.
I didn't realize that you were involved in one of the first group homes.
Yeah, it was called Normal Street House.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any?
What street?
It was on Normal Street in
Norman.
Ypsilanti.
Normal. Oh, of
Normal.
course I knew Normal Street because of the funny name.
Yeah, yeah. Although EMU was normal, a school for teachers.
That's right.
Yeah. So it runs right into the campus.
Right. Because Ipsy was a teacher's college.
Yeah.
And they were called normal schools. Yeah. Uh, yeah. I remember the name, but I don't ever visited.
Yeah.
Those were really hard days. Uh, and many times we couldn't locate group homes in any place except places that couldn't fight the, you know, it was very problematic because they'd all end up in a kind of specific area of town.
Yeah. Well, I think, sharing that people live in group homes and the community has come to
Yes,
accept that,
yes, yeah. Nobody really squawks about it. I mean, I think we're kind of getting off topic, but yeah, that's an interesting issue.
Yeah.
So how are you different today, Barb?
How am I different today?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things is that I'm able to articulate what's going on with me in a way to get the help that I need.
Hmm.
Um, I I don't want to go into all of the past stuff,
Sure. Sure.
but the I when I was in I I guess second grade, 7 years old, I got the measles really,
Mhm.
really bad and almost died. And I had to relearn a lot of things like how to talk and how to
Mhm.
do all of that kind of stuff. And so having the ability to articulate what I'm experiencing um, really has made a world of difference to me.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Jaden, how are you different today?
I guess I think I'm mostly different in terms of the way I speak about my story as well as my experiences. I think I used to be really nervous to speak on these experiences as well as really nervous to admit to myself what was happening. And I just think that I've changed in the aspect of now I have both a lot more empathy for myself as well as others who are
Hmm.
struggling because life is hard and none of us really understand what other people are going through. So acknowledging that it's not easy for anyone and that being able to share our stories and relate will really spread awareness and
Yeah.
education.
Yeah.
And I would just say that hearing you talk is like I'm thinking you don't have to go through what I went through over years. You can get better now and you can get the support you need and you can continue to grow and understand and become a psychiatrist. I think that's what you want to do. I really think that that can happen for you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Barb. Hearing your story has been so incredible.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Well, I'm reluctant to take it beyond the hour, but I think, you know, the need or problem, what'll help others. I think you've covered a lot. Uh, should we stop here or do you want to go on?
I could go on for like 10 more minutes, maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
that works for me.
Okay. Okay. So, Jaden, what do you think is how would you address the need or problem that your story involves? You know.
I think the need moving forward is just having more awareness about what other people around you may be going through and just more empathy for what people are experiencing in their day-to-day lives, because you really never know unless they're saying something to you.
Mm-hmm. You know, and this is, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but in the context of what I experienced last night at the township meeting, I think people need to hear this, even who are opposing the program, because they need to hear. You can, I don't care if you oppose this program, you know, honestly. I think it's more important that you hear what can help others and start that process, you know.
Mhm.
What's going to happen in Superior Township is a long process. So, but so I was fairly despairing of doing this after last night, but now I think it's really important that people hear this and respond to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, thank you. What do you think, Barb?
Well, I think it's, you could also say that if you have a brain, you could have a mental health condition. But I just think that well, let me go somewhere. Let's see. So it used to be that we made children who were left-handed learn to write with their right hand,
Mhm.
and having left-handedness was considered to be demonic even. I mean, the word for left-handedness in Latin is sinistra, which means sinister, and so on. And once we decided that it was okay to let people write with their left hand if they were left-handed, we became aware that there were many, many, many people who were left-handed. And I think, you know, obviously the pandemic has made things difficult for many people, but the more normalized, the more we allow people to be who they are, the more we'll realize that, you know, there are many people who have mental health conditions, and they're part of the community, they're part of society. And if I had had a place like Garrett Space when I was growing up, it would have been very helpful for me.
Mhm.
And I think we need to think about how we can accept neurodiversity.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Great. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's the real message that I think we need to, and we can use the Superior Township as an example of that. The real message is that people is this issue about opening up and providing safe spaces and helping people express themselves. I love your Latin, Barb.
Oh,
My mother was a Latin teacher, so
oh, she was. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So dexter and sinister, right and left are the Latin words. Beautiful example. Well, great. I think, you know, I'll what I'll do is I'll take this and make a transcript and then send it to you with specifically with with the comments that are related to you, and then you can, if you want to craft your story and tell it at the township meeting on the 26th, I'll be there with you. But if you don't, that's fine as well. You know, it's entirely, you know, depends on how you feel. So,
Yeah.
do you mind if we stop now? Is that all right? Okay. And what I'll do is I'll make a transcript and send it to you, and then you can help refine your story. Think about doing it on the 26th. I'll give you the information. I think it's important that people hear these things, even if even if you don't change their mind about Garrett Space in Superior Township on Dixboro Road, they can still hear them and benefit. We can benefit from them. So thank you so much. If you don't mind, I will show this video to one or two people within NAMI, but not outside NAMI. Is that okay with you? Okay, great. I'll tell you who I share it with, and just so so you know. Is that okay with you, Barb?
Yeah, that's fine. I just had a question at the meeting. How many people actually presented?
They limited the presentation to 20 minutes. So I would say about 15 people spoke. You know, 2 minutes a shot. Um, you know, that's like maybe between 10 and 15. There was a little bit of disruption at one point, and they had to bring it back to order. So maybe 10 people, equally for and against. And there were about 70 people in the hall. It was full. A
Okay.
great opportunity to get the word out. I mean, to me, this is like, you know, I'm like a politician. You get 70 people in a room, I'll be there. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? And that's why
But
the politicians were there, you know, Felicia Brabeck and Jason
yeah.
Morgan and some of the others.
So how how did they choose who was going to speak?
That was part of the most interesting part. They, out of respect for Felicia, they said, you know, they gave her the first choice, and she's, you know, one of these politicians. She knows what she's doing. She brought her friends up with her, and then said she made a statement. Then she handed the microphone off to another friend of hers, who was a primary care physician, and then she gave it to another friend, and then people thought, well, you know, what is she doing? We're not getting a chance to speak. So they complained and spoke out, so then the township leader said, look, you know, when you he called the meeting back to order. So it was a very interesting process.
Okay.
And then he gave the next three he gave to people who were against the proposal. So he said, but you know, none of this talking out. When you address the township, you're here to address the township board, not to address each other. You address me, I'll tell you who can speak, and when your 2 minutes is up, you have to stop. So it was an interesting experience and process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
it's really I was a little bit despairing earlier today, but now I'm much more hopeful. Thanks a lot for helping
oh,
me
you're welcome.
get through the doldrums on this.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. This has been really great. I appreciate your help,
Well, thank you for.
and I'll get you the transcript. You know, it'll only take maybe a day, so we'll get it back to you. Okay,
Okay.
thanks a lot. Thanks, Jaden. You're beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you guys as well. I have to run because I need to catch the bus home, but
Oh,
thank you.
okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Take
All
care.
right. Thanks, Jaden. Thanks, Barb.
You're welcome.
Hey, she's great,
Bye-bye.
isn't she?
Yes, she's very good. And I just think that things are changing enough that
Yeah,
people won't experience this
yeah,
prolonged recovery.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a lot better than it used to be. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
Barb, take
thank you.
care.
You
Thanks a
too.
lot.
You're
You're
welcome.
okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.